Welcome back to Healed Whole Called. I am Wendy Melrose, and today we are talking about what it means to still be called after the grief, after the surgery, and after the kind of loss that changes you forever. Because some seasons don't just wound you, they redefine you. I'm joined by Dr. Simone Williams-Young, a faith-rooted publisher, best-selling author, and leader who carries both authority and tenderness. But what makes her voice powerful isn't just what she built, it's what she survived. Dr. Simone has walked through a life-altering brain surgery. She's endured the devastating loss of her son. She knows what it is to face moments that could have silenced her, but instead chose surrender, healing, and obedience. Today, as a founder of Youth at Heart Publishing, she helps others steward their stories and give language to their testimony and build legacy that outlives pain. She doesn't just teach people how to publish books, she helps them reclaim their voice. And if you're listening today wondering whether grief disqualified you, whether trauma paused your calling, this conversation is for you. Dr. Simone, I'm so honored and welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So share with the audience where you're checking in from.
I am checking in from the Atlanta, Georgia area.
Nice. So, and everyone's like, she moved from California to Georgia. Now, welcome to the Central USA. We're the best.
I'm excited. I love being here.
So Dr. Simone, when you look back at your journey, surgery, loss, rebuilding, what feels like the defining turning point for you?
Wow. The defining turning point is, to me, I would say more so that stuck is after my surgery, understanding that I clearly had a purpose and I had not truly been walking in my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And surgery, and when they say, oh, you could have died from brain surgery, it has a way of kind of reshifting you, and to say so I would say the brain surgery was kind of like a big major shifting point. I think every trauma that I went through is a defining moment in some way. But I think this one just really, and then after the surgeries, having two seizures after the surgery that even set back my progress. It just kind of catapulted me into what I was supposed to do. And then right when I was still healing from stitches across my head, I heard God speak to me. He said, get the project together. And I authored 37 authors in one project.
Wow. That's
while I was still healing from brain surgery. And, brain still cloggy, I'm still struggling with memory and everything. And I put together a project called I Am a Living Testimony. Because he said, you're just not a testimony. There are other people that have testimonies as well. So to me, that was a defining catapult into really pushing me out there into doing what I was supposed to do.
Oh, that's really awesome. And it's funny because the Lord has called me to help people write their trauma, tragedy to victory stories. And there can't be enough people in the space because there's 9 billion of us on the planet, and every single one of us is his child. Yes. Whether we choose to acknowledge his presence and existence is not the point. The point is that we've all been through something, going through something, living through something. And when you get to the other side, and sometimes even the middle of the healing, right, Dr. Simone, you're in the middle of it. The Lord's like, hey, this is what you're going to do. And just learning to trust in that moment that when he does call you to something great like that, it's to help aid in your healing, not to push you past. And some people are like, oh, well, don't get distracted. It's not a distraction when it helps bring your purpose back.
Exactly. I had so many people that were actually really worried and concerned that I was pushing myself too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Even for instance, my mom, because, my mom had to see me. There was times when how they found out I needed to have brain surgery was I woke up from work and my left side of my body was not working.
Mm.
So I woke up to do the graveyard shift, and then I was getting these needle pains that were going up and down the left side, almost like when your foot goes to sleep, and it hurts, it's numb, and that's what was happening all up and down. They thought I was having a stroke.
Sure.
And they said, well, good thing is you're not having a stroke, but bad thing is you have a huge tumor on the brain.
Wow.
And we feel that it's been there for quite some time. So that's another even testimony by itself, how God kept me. I kid you not, I was driving over anywhere between 90 to 180 miles a day.
Wow.
In California just to get to work, church, and do the things, because I live way up, not only look about 3 hours away from Las Vegas.
Okay.
And to do anything, you had to get down to the city, so if you wanted to really do anything. Mm-hmm. So that was another testimony in itself.
Yeah.
So, so God is just, I just say God is just amazing. And he really kept me. And like I said, and through that, a lot of things were birthed from that tragedy, the true turning your pain into purpose.
That's awesome. So after walking through such profound grief, what did healing actually look like in real time? Not polished version, but the lived one.
Frustrating. Frustrating. Like yes. Healing is, to be honest, I'm not giving you the cookie cutter version. It's frustrating because when you're a person like myself who everybody depended on me. Mm-hmm. Mother, husband, children, grandchildren, everybody. Mm-hmm. And when you're used to doing multiple things at one time, and you're kind of stuck with having to rely on people to make your food, and now you went from running and you're pushing a walker, mm-hmm. and you're having to go to therapy, learning how to re-walk, and you're frustrated because your brain is not functioning at the same capacity as you wanted to. And so healing can be frustrating, mm-hmm. but I also learned the true definition of depending on God.
Yeah,
because I had no choice.
Right.
I had no choice because there was nothing that I could do, nothing in my own ability that I could do, because a lot of my ability had been taken. And right. So that's, and then after I had the seizures, not too long after the surgery, and I fell and I hit my head, and I was stuck in the bathroom all by myself. And even then I heard that voice whisper, "You're going to die like this." And, so even after that even created a different type of healing process. Mm-hmm. Because I was doing better, but then it set me back.
Right.
So there goes another frustration level, sure. But I got through it. It was frustrating, but it taught me a lot about me.
Right.
You have, when you're just laying in bed and there's not much you can do, you have a lot of time to think, you have a lot of time to reevaluate some things. So the healing process, I guess you could say, is liberating also as well as frustrating, some kicking, screaming, crying, grieving. I call it grieving what once was, because you're grieving your former self and all the things that you could do, and having to learn how to do them in the capacity that you can do them now. Right. And sometimes that's a grieving process in itself, but it also taught me that I can adjust to change.
Mm-hmm. Now, did this all happen before the loss of your son, or was it after?
This is after I lost my son in 2020. And same thing. I was working 2 jobs and woke up and I had about literally like 50 missed calls.
Wow.
But because I had turned my phone off because I was so tired. I was literally only getting like 3 hours of sleep, if even that much a day, from working 2 jobs. And I had to work that Saturday, and I woke up. I didn't even hear my phone ringing. And at first they said my son was shot.
Oh, no.
And that I needed to hurry up and get to Las Vegas. Mind you, I'm like about 3 to 4 hours away from Las Vegas. So I had to hurry up and get in my car and drive. And in the middle, things just was not making sense to me because, you know, after a while, you're like, wait a minute, why am I driving to a house address? Why are they giving me a house address? Then hours, you know, it's like hours started to pass. And I'm like, well, shouldn't the doctors be calling me at some point? You know, shouldn't I be answering some questions because I'm his mother, his next of kin? But I wasn't getting anything. Just my daughter calling me just said, just hurry up and get to this address. And I'm like, so finally, I believe God did not want me to be ambushed.
Ooh.
And I was driving and I heard the voice, but it was very frank. And it said, your son is dead. Just like that. And I said, Ashley, is my son dead? And then she breaks out crying because she was trying to hold this. She was already in Las Vegas. She had actually passed me up, didn't come pick me up. She raced out there before I got there. And she was even further than I was. And she drives like a speed demon. So, you know, and so she burst out because she was trying to hold it together just to try to get me there safely. And finally she said, Mom, please pull over because I can't lose you too. And so this son, we had a very special bond. This baby, he's my second oldest. He's my firstborn son. And he was the first to go to college. And he was going to Texas College. He was going to an HBCU. He was on the honor roll. He played football. And because I was a single mom, I didn't have any money for him. So he fought. And actually, he was considered old to actually get a scholarship because he was close to 23.
Okay.
So, but he had graduated from junior college. So he was doing scrimmages, trying to get some sort of scholarship so he could further his education. And he actually got it. And he fought. He slept in his car. He did whatever he had to do to get to where he had to go. And he said, Mom, I'm going to take care of you. Oh, you know, I'm going to buy you a house. I'm going to do this and do that. But then COVID happened and he had to leave college abruptly. And so he came out here, and him and my middle son, in the beginning of COVID, they didn't have no business being at a party, but there was a party in Las Vegas at a house, and it got shut up. And he was the only one that got killed.
Oh, man.
He was the only one out of all those people. And the grief, you know, it took me by surprise. But God quickly woke me up when I heard him says, you're complaining. And he said, you had 2 sons at that party. They were close together. He said, you better be thanking me because you could be going to a double funeral. How quick God will humble you, even in even in your grief, even when you kind of feel like you have a right to be upset.
Right.
You know, and even in that, he says, oh, you know, did you not realize I spared the other one? You could have been going to a double funeral. So that was my experience. What happened in 2020 when I lost my son.
Goodness. Well, when you reflect back on everything that you've walked through, have you ever had a moment when you realize this story is bigger than me? And what did that awareness feel like?
I think everything that I've gone through, I realized it was bigger than me. When I lost my son, it was very public because my son was well known and well loved. When we had his funeral, I didn't think anybody was going to come because of COVID. I had to get a bigger church, and people were flowing out of that church all the way in the streets. They almost had to block the whole streets off.
Wow.
I didn't think anybody was going to come because he was that well loved. And some people didn't come because of COVID. So imagine if COVID didn't happen, I would have had to rent a cathedral. And the first lesson in that was my pastor preached his funeral. And I realized there were a lot of young people. That may have been the only church that they will ever go to.
Mm.
So my pastor preached salvation at that funeral.
Mm.
And 2, I had people that came up to me that sympathized or empathized with me and had said that they commended my strength. How they could clearly see how God was holding me together through the ordeal. And do you know, I say within about 6 months to a year, a few of those same people had lost children.
Mm.
I think one by suicide and another one was killed, and a couple of other things. So even in that, I said, wow, God, you had me go through this to show other people that they can yet be strong.
Mm-hmm.
And get through it, that you can actually carry them through something so tragic. And that was one. And then even also the brain surgery, when God had me do that project, after I had to manage 37 authors. And on top of that, I did a book release party. And it was my first big book release party like this. And do you know, there were so many people. There was no parking. And it was kind of a solo show. It's like I had to seat the people. I had to do this. I'm on a cane and I'm barely, do you know, I had to ditch the cane and I'm waddling like this because my walking is still not, it's still not all the way. But I had to ditch the cane because with the adrenaline, I had to run the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
And in that, people were just so amazed that I could even function the way that I functioned. And everybody knew that it was God, the only way that I could have did it. So I knew that was higher or, greater than me. Mm-hmm. Because truly, like I said, God, God carried me through and others got to see it. And even through that project, I'm still getting feedback. And now as we released that project in 2025, last year, August, and people are still coming to me saying how their lives have been changed. Mm. People read the books and people, deliverance is happening and people are just, and even a healing process for some of the people who wrote their chapters. And they said, I thought that I was over this, but because I had to write it, I didn't realize that the emotions were still there. So there was a healing process in that project as well. So there was a multifold, and it like I said, it was clearly bigger than me.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting how, so when I'm guiding authors, I notice, they want to write their memoir. And I believe it's always from the wound, not from the wound, from the scar. Right. And so, but sometimes when they are writing from the scar, like, I'm good. And they do have to write through some of those chapters in order to help them carry the story. Right. Yes. And they're just like, wow, I didn't realize how much emotion that still brings through, because we're fine until we're not fine again. Yes. And but it doesn't mean that the wound rips back open. Mm-hmm. It just means that the Lord brings deeper healing in through sharing the testimony.
Absolutely.
And when we get deep is when we can share the true raw truth of what it's like to lose a son, to go through brain surgery, to move from California to Atlanta. Because so often this world is such a, hey, how are you? I'm good. So shallow. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like, are you good? No, I'm not good. Mm-hmm. Life sucks right now. But but why? It's like, so, I I'm a person who craves deeper conversation. And I wish more of the world would get like, let's just get beyond the, hey, I'm good. And get, I'm not even saying everybody on the street needs to know our whole story, but there's a whole story in every person on the street.
That's true. Even to share something even transparent. I think was it last week? It may have been last week or the week before. I was looking for a picture of my grandmother, and I lost a lot of things in this move because right around when I was moving, I still wasn't functioning at the capacity, and I ended up having to sell my house, and I really didn't have a lot of help. And so I just kind of ended up throwing everything out. A company just had to come and so really I'm starting all over again. And so I was looking for a picture of my grandmother, and I went on my uncle's page I said, I know he has something on Facebook of my grandmother that I can get. But believe it or not, there was a lot of pictures of my son that I either don't remember because of memory or I didn't have. He had. And it kind of, when I was going through those pictures, and a different emotion arose that I had not experienced. Now, my son had passed in 2020. I have pictures up of him here. I do really well with honoring him, but for some reason in this moment, these pictures, I guess, that I had never seen or don't remember, it brought the best way I could say it, excuse me, I'm a person that describes things a lot by sound and feeling. But the best I could say was, it felt like somebody punched me in my stomach and then took a boulder and tried to finish me with it. I'm serious. And that's about the best that I can explain it. And it had me in a feeling I was literally buckled over.
Wow.
And it felt like I wanted to fall out on the floor. It was such I even had to ask God, I said, oh God, why this right now? Like, you've done pretty good with holding me together. I mean, I've cried and I've kicked and I've screamed. I've done all of that. And I say, but this right here, this emotion is quite a bit much, and I'm like, this is about 6 years, almost in August, it'll be 6 years. And I said, so why this new feeling? Why this new emotion now? And so I had to, one thing I've learned is I talk to self. And if anybody was in the room with me, they would think I was strange. And I literally had to say, okay, self, you won tonight. I'm going to go ahead and go to sleep. But tomorrow, we're not doing this tomorrow because I got things to do. I got places to go and things like that. So I had to literally talk to myself and tell myself what I was going to allow, what I was not going to allow. And then the next day, his picture popped up and I think it tried to happen again. And I said, oh, no, not today. And do you know that emotion went right back down? Because I said, not today. And then, so it went right back down. But people think I'm probably weird, but sometimes you have to talk to yourself.
Sure.
And I had to give myself a boundary. I'm going to allow you to grieve. I'm going to allow you to go through the emotions. I'm going to let you feel it today. But tomorrow we have things to do. So I need you to get in line, tomorrow. And it was so. It was so. So I guess grief and feelings and things, like you said, that deeper conversation. And then it's like God said to me, now you can talk to somebody who's still going through it years later, because now you understand what that new emotion is.
That's
he said you couldn't understand it before because he guarded me and he kept me from a lot, but it was allowed to surface. And he said, so now if you have to talk to somebody who's still struggling, he said, now you understand what that is. It's just a different level, like you said, for a deeper conversation for someone. They need somebody to empathize with them and understand what they are going through even down the line.
Right. Well, and so my family's going through, grief right now through the loss of my niece. And like we all say, well, obviously whatever we're going through, it's for purpose. And so my parents, they have a farm store with my brother and his wife. And a woman walked in over the weekend, and she was talking about how she can't breathe. And my mom, and no matter what doctor I go to, they can't figure out what's wrong. And my mom's like, tell me what happened in your life. And she shared about how her husband had a stroke last fall. And so now she's grieving the loss of the former person. Right? My mom goes, well, the reason why the doctors can't find it is because grief processes through your lungs. So you need to find either a homeopathic solution or a way to process that grief so it gets through your lungs and stops staying stuck.
Yeah.
So
that's deep right there.
Yeah. And so people just don't realize that. And it's the same thing when people go through massive heartbreak. You have to protect and support your heart because it can literally break.
Yes.
And, grief is more than just the 5 stages. It's also how does it process through our body? Because if we don't allow it to process through our body, it can get stuck. And if it gets stuck, then it can literally harm the organs.
Exactly.
And, so I just think it's really good. And, and you and I as storytellers who help people with their stories, I've had to tell people, like, it's not time yet because you're still going through it. But I literally just took on a project. She was right at the end of it. And I'm like, let's go, let's start. And, now she's able to process her whole experience. And it doesn't have to be a professionally published book, but writing it down and getting it out and sharing all the things. You do not have to be PC. You can tell God all the words, all the cuss words, all the yelling, all the screaming, all the tantrum, all the laying down, all the crying.
Yes.
He is a big enough being. He is our creator. He can handle all the emotions.
Everything.
Every word in the dictionary, including the bad ones, are allowed.
Yeah.
And I know that people are just like, oh, it's just disrespectful. But the thing is that if you're thinking it and you're feeling it, and it's the only way that you can choose to get the out, he'd rather you get it out than to keep it in.
Right. And I also say too, like if you journal and you can write down and process some of your emotions, even sometimes we think we're not healing fast enough. And it's like, but if you wrote that emotion or you wrote down what was going with you today, and maybe say a year down the road, say you couldn't even get out of bed, or you couldn't comb your hair, or no one could even say that loved one's name without you falling apart. And then you can go back to a past memory and you can even look and you can say, wow, I have come a long way. Sometimes we don't realize how far we've come. It's just like, when the Bible says, write the vision, make it plain. So when you write it down, you have something to go back to, or something to refer to, or even a feeling, like you said, a feeling, emotion, or a trigger. So even if later, say like me, I came, that was a new emotion, that was a new feeling for me, so I wrote it down. Because you never know. I mean, we don't want anything to happen. We don't want to anticipate anything, but sometimes things can trickle down and we don't understand why or how we act a certain way or behave. It's just like how your mom had to pull that out of the person who she asked, what happened back in your life, so sometimes we could see our progresses. We can even see, okay, I'm still experiencing this. Maybe this is something that I can work on. You can identify it, even if you have to see a health professional. If you write down the emotions and things you can effectively articulate. you know, some of the reoccurring struggles that are happening with, so that that individual or that person knows how to help you. So it is also important to understand yourself and not be in denial of yourself. Just like one of the things that happened with me when my son passed, even though I was good, you know, I was taking it better than expected. Still torn up, but one thing I could not do was work. I was, like I said, I was the person used to being able to juggle a lot. I could work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, call center management. But one thing I could not do was pick up that phone and hear people yelling at me all day, and I was mentally not there. You know, so I had to take a year off of work. And then my husband told me not to go back into what I was doing before, but me, I'm looking at, okay, I gotta pay some bills, you know, and and what I was doing before, I was, you know, you can make money, but what he did tell me was, he said, get you a security guard card. That way you can work and you don't have to, you know, do something as strenuous. I was disobedient. I went back to work. Let me tell you, the day they put me on the phones, I think this was God showing me. Everybody called out that day. Do you hear me? I think there was only and it was one of the busiest days. But do you know, I wanted to cry. And do you know, I heard something snap? Like it literally snapped in my head. I heard it. And I almost just threw the headphones down and I almost just walked out and drove home, literally. And so I forced myself to stay there to the end of the day. And I had a day off the next day. I took my behind down to that security guard because I got the guard card like he told me to, and they put me something in right away. I was just sitting at a booth signing people in. That was more of my speed that I could handle for the time being. And it was like, I'm not going to be hard on myself because I couldn't handle things the way that I could handle before. I recognized that I was still going through a trauma, and I knew myself, and I did not want to push myself over the edge.
Right.
So it was a compromise. It wasn't the same amount of money, but it was a compromise so I could get some bills paid and still be able to allow to work and keep my sanity at the same time. And I actually found that I actually enjoyed it because I didn't have nobody on the phone yelling and cussing me out and all this kind of stuff. So I stayed doing that up until I, with the brain surgery. So I was enjoying it. I liked it. I said, well, I don't have to talk to nobody. I can sit at a booth. I can just be free. And so I stayed doing that because I enjoyed it. But I had to understand my body, and I had to know how much I can take and what I couldn't take.
So in order to close, what would you say to the person listening to you right now who's going through so much? What words of wisdom or support would you have for them to help them know that this is not the end of their story, that the best is yet to come, even if it doesn't seem like it?
I know, even though it doesn't look like it and you may be going through a lot, but understand that you are not your trauma. You are not your tragedy. It's just that sometimes things shift, and your outcome or how you look at what your situation is can also help determine your outcome. If you take whatever that your situation is limiting you in, and if you can find a way around it, yes, this is happening, but I can make this happen because I can't make it over here. Change your outlook and know that you can do things in more ways than one. It's just that you may not be able to do it in that same capacity anymore, but you can get through whatever it is that you are going through. Just keep your head up and keep the faith and keep the hope, and you can definitely see yourself through.
That's so amazing. Well, I appreciate you sharing your testimony with us, Dr. Simone. And remember, audience, that follow my the Healed Whole Called my personal page. The Healed Whole Called website is just me, and so follow Dr. Simone, follow myself. Remember to subscribe and learn all the different things about how you know that you are more than what you're going through. That you are healed, whole, and called for something more. Till next time.